Now let's begin. The parking lot at Eastview Elementary was nearly empty when Mitchell Brown pulled in at 4:47 p.m. His shift at the construction site had run late, a concrete pour that couldn't wait, and he'd texted his mother-in-law Donna an hour earlier to pick up 7-year-old Tyler from school. She'd responded with a curt, "fine," that he'd learned to interpret as passive-aggressive agreement. Mitchell was a man built from hard work and harder choices. At 34, his hands bore the calluses of someone who'd worked construction since dropping out of college at 19 when Sarah got pregnant. He stood 6'2" with broad shoulders that carried the weight of providing for his family, and sharp gray eyes that missed very little. His dark hair was perpetually dusty from job sites, and his face had the kind of rugged honesty that made people trust him instinctively. The drive to Donna's house took 18 minutes through Sacramento's suburban sprawl. Mitchell had never liked his mother-in-law, and the feeling was mutual. Donna Atkinson was a woman who measured love and suffering, who believed children needed to be broken like horses to become respectable adults. At 63, she carried herself with rigid authority, her silver hair pulled back so tightly it seemed to stretch her face into a permanent expression of disapproval. She'd raised Sarah alone after her husband died, and had done so with an iron fist that left scars Mitchell was only beginning to understand. Sarah had died 3 years ago, ovarian cancer, stage 4 by the time they caught it. She was only 31. In her final weeks, delirious with pain medication, she'd made Mitchell promise to never let Donna have unsupervised time with Tyler. "She'll hurt him," Sarah had whispered, gripping his hand with surprising strength. "The way she hurt me. Promise me, Mitch." He'd promised. But promises were complicated when you worked 60-hour weeks and had no other family nearby. Donna had been offering to help more often lately, showing up with casseroles and criticism in equal measure. Mitchell had kept Tyler away from her as much as possible, but today he'd had no choice. The house was a modest ranch style in Carmichael, painted a faded yellow with brown trim. Donna's car sat in the driveway, and Mitchell noticed the living room curtains twitch as he approached. He knocked twice. Donna opened the door wearing a floral dress and an expression of forced pleasantness that didn't reach her eyes. "Mitchell, you're late. Traffic. Where's Tyler?" "Getting his things." She stepped aside reluctantly. The house smelled of lemon cleaner and something else, something metallic that made Mitchell's instincts flare. Tyler emerged from the hallway, his backpack slung over one shoulder. Mitchell's son had Sarah's green eyes and delicate features, though he was growing into Mitchell's height. But something was wrong. Tyler was walking strangely, each step measured and painful, his face pale. "Hey, buddy. Ready to go?" Mitchell kept his voice light, but his eyes were scanning his son for injuries. "Yeah, Dad." Tyler's voice was small. They made it to the car. Mitchell helped Tyler into the passenger seat and noticed the boy's sharp intake of breath as he bent his knees. "Tyler, what happened?" The boy stared at his lap. "Nothing. Tyler." Mitchell's voice was firm but gentle. "Tell me." Tears welled in Tyler's eyes. "Grandma said I needed discipline lessons. I accidentally knocked over a vase. She made me kneel on rice. For a long time." Mitchell's jaw clenched. "How long?" She set a timer. 6 hours. The world narrowed to a pinpoint. 6 hours. Mitchell's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Let me see your knees." Tyler pulled up his pant legs. Mitchell's breath caught. The boy's knees were raw, bleeding, swollen to twice their normal size. Grains of rice were embedded in the torn skin, some ground so deep they'd need to be extracted. The flesh around the wounds was angry red, the beginning of infection already setting in. Mitchell pulled out his phone and took photos. 3 from different angles, documenting everything. Then he started the car. "We're going to the hospital." "Dad, I'm okay." "No." Mitchell's voice was steel. "You're not okay. This is not okay." St. Mary's emergency room was moderately busy for a Thursday evening. Mitchell carried Tyler inside. The boy couldn't walk properly, and approached the intake desk with controlled urgency. The nurse, a tired-looking woman named Kristen Schwartz according to her badge, took one look at Tyler's knees and immediately called for a doctor. Dr. Julian Hudson was young, maybe 30, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He examined Tyler with careful hands while Mitchell explained what happened, leaving out no details. Hudson's expression grew increasingly grim. "Mr. Brown, this is severe. The tissue damage is significant, and there's definitely foreign material embedded that needs removal. This is also. He paused, choosing his words carefully. This is abuse. I'm mandated to report this. I know. I want you to. Mitchell's voice was calm, but something dangerous flickered in his eyes. Document everything. Every grain of rice, every bruise, every tear. I want a complete record. While Hudson worked on Tyler, carefully extracting rice grains and cleaning the wounds, a social worker arrived. Andrea Harrison was in her 40s, competent and compassionate, and she asked Tyler gentle questions while taking notes. Tyler, numbed by local anesthetic and exhausted, told her everything. How Grandma had filled a metal baking pan with uncooked rice, made him strip to his underwear, and forced him to kneel. How she'd set the kitchen timer and told him if he moved or complained, she'd add another hour. How she'd sat in her chair watching television while he cried. She said Mom was weak because she never learned proper discipline. Tyler whispered. She said I was going to be weak like Mom if I didn't learn. Mitchell stepped out of the room. His hands were shaking, not with fear, but with rage so pure it felt like electricity in his veins. He walked to the bathroom, locked the door, and stared at himself in the mirror. The man looking back was someone he recognized, but rarely let others see. This was the Mitchell who'd grown up in foster homes, who'd survived by being smarter and tougher than everyone else, who'd clawed his way to stability through sheer will. He'd buried that version of himself when he met Sarah, tried to become the gentle man she deserved. But Sarah was gone, and her mother had just hurt his son. Mitchell pulled out his phone and made a call. It rang 3 times before a gravelly voice answered. Mitch? That you? Yeah. Jerry, I need a favor. Jerry Duncan was 46, built like a refrigerator, and had been Mitchell's foreman for the past 8 years. More importantly, he was former military police and still had connections. Lots of connections. He was also fiercely loyal to Mitchell, who'd once lent him $15,000 without hesitation when Jerry's daughter needed emergency surgery. Name it. I need information on someone. Donna Atkinson, 63, lives in Carmichael. Mitchell rattled off the address. I need everything. Financial records, medical history, police reports, lawsuits, social media, everything. And I need to know if she's hurt anyone else. There was a pause. This about Tyler? Yeah. How bad? 6 hours kneeling on rice. His knees looked like ground meat. The pause was longer this time. When Jerry spoke again, his voice was harder. I'll have everything by morning. You thinking what I think you're thinking? I'm thinking about making sure she never hurts another child. Legally. Mitchell was quiet for a moment. We'll start there. He returned to the room as Dr. Hudson was finishing Tyler's bandaging. We're admitting him overnight for observation, Hudson said. The wounds are deep, and I want to make sure infection doesn't set in. He'll need to stay off his knees completely for at least 2 weeks, and even then recovery will take time. Andrea Harrison touched Mitchell's arm. DCFS will be investigating. They'll likely go to Ms. Atkinson's home tonight. Given the severity and your son's testimony, I'd expect them to issue a protective order immediately. Good. Mitchell sat beside Tyler's bed and took his son's hand. You did nothing wrong, buddy. Nothing. What she did was evil, and it's never going to happen again. I promise you that. Tyler's eyes were heavy with medication and exhaustion. Is Grandma going to be mad at me? Grandma is never going to be anywhere near you again. Mitchell's voice was gentle, but there was granite underneath. Sleep now. I'm right here. As Tyler drifted off, Mitchell checked his phone. Jerry had already sent a text. Found something interesting already. Sarah wasn't her first daughter. There was an older one. She disappeared in 1998. Call me when you can. Mitchell stared at the message, his mind racing. Sarah had never mentioned a sister. Never even hinted at one. What else had Donna done? What else had Sarah hidden, trying to protect him, or trying to forget? He stepped into the hallway and called Jerry back. Tell me. Donna had 2 daughters. The older one was named Diana. Born in 1976, would have been 22 when she disappeared in 1998. There was a missing persons report filed by a neighbor, but Donna claimed Diana ran away to Los Angeles to pursue acting. Case went cold. Diana was never found. You think Donna killed her? I think it's a hell of a coincidence that Donna's daughter disappeared right after calling the cops on her mother for assault. I pulled the police report from that incident. Diana showed up at a hospital in 1997 with a broken arm and cigarette burns. She told the ER doctor her mother did it. Charges were filed, but Diana recanted before trial. Said she'd lied to get attention. 6 months later, she vanished. Mitchell felt ice forming in his chest. Sarah never told me. Sarah was 11 when Diana disappeared. Donna probably made sure she never talked about it. I'm digging deeper. But Mitch, this woman is dangerous. Like, genuinely dangerous. Keep digging. I need everything by tomorrow afternoon. Mitchell ended the call and stood in the quiet hospital corridor, fluorescent lights humming overhead. DCFS would investigate. Maybe they'd revoke Donna's grandparent rights. Maybe they'd monitor her for a while. But that wasn't enough. Not for what she'd done to Tyler. Not for what she might have done to Diana. Not for the years of abuse Sarah had endured in silence. He thought about Sarah's last words. The promise he'd made. He'd failed her once by letting Donna near Tyler. He wouldn't fail again. Mitchell Brown was a patient man. He'd learned patience working construction, where rushing meant mistakes and mistakes meant people got hurt. He'd learned it being a single father, where every day was a marathon of small tasks and smaller victories. But patience didn't mean inaction. It meant waiting for the right moment, preparing carefully, and striking with precision. Donna Atkinson thought she was untouchable. She thought her age and her respectability and her dead husband's reputation protected her. She thought everyone she'd hurt had either run away or stayed silent. She was wrong. As Mitchell returned to Tyler's room and settled into the uncomfortable chair beside his son's bed, he began making a list in his mind. Not a list of what he'd do to Donna, not yet, but a list of what he needed to know. Her routines, her vulnerabilities, her secrets. He'd been building things his entire life. Now he was going to build something different. A trap. The morning light filtered through hospital blinds as Mitchell woke to his phone buzzing. Tyler was still asleep, his small body looking even smaller in the hospital bed, his bandaged knees elevated on pillows. Mitchell stepped into the hallway before answering. It's Jerry. You need to hear this. Mitchell listened as Jerry detailed what he'd uncovered through a night of digging. Donna Atkinson wasn't just an abusive grandmother. She was a serial abuser with a pattern spanning decades. Jerry had found 3 former neighbors willing to talk off the record about incidents they'd witnessed. A boy Donna had babysat in 1985 who'd ended up in the ER with a concussion. A foster child placed in her home in 1992 who'd been removed after 2 weeks, though the records were sealed. And Diana's disappearance, which looked less like running away and more like something much darker when you examined the timeline. There's more, Jerry continued. Donna's husband, Sarah's father, didn't die of a heart attack like everyone thinks. I found the original medical examiner's report. There were inconsistencies. Elevated potassium levels that weren't consistent with his medical history. The Me noted it as suspicious, but the family doctor signed off on natural causes anyway. That doctor lost his license 3 years later for falsifying death certificates. Mitchell's grip on the phone tightened. You're saying she murdered her husband. I'm saying there are a lot of dead and missing people in Donna Atkinson's wake, and nobody's ever connected the dots. She's smart, Mitch. Careful. She picks victims who won't be believed or won't be missed. Tyler would have been missed. Would he? Single dad working long hours, kid getting discipline lessons from grandma. How long before the escalation? How long before an accident happened and Donna played the grieving grandmother? Mitchell closed his eyes. The thought made him physically ill, but he knew Jerry was right. Donna had been positioning herself, offering more and more to help, inserting herself into their lives. This wasn't just cruelty, it was predation. I need copies of everything you found. And Jerry? Keep digging on Diana. If there's any evidence. I'm already on it. I've got a PI friend who specializes in cold cases. He's good, and he's discreet. When Dr. Hudson made his rounds at 8 a.m., Tyler was awake and managing to eat some breakfast despite his pain. The doctor checked his wounds and seemed satisfied with the healing progress. The good news is there's no sign of infection yet. The bad news is these wounds are going to leave scars. Physical therapy might help, but he trailed off, shaking his head. What kind of person does this to a child? Andrea Harrison returned with news that DCFS had visited Donna's home at 7 a.m. She denied everything. Andrea said, her voice tight with frustration. Claimed Tyler was lying, that he'd injured himself skateboarding and was blaming her. She was very convincing, apparently. But we have the medical evidence and Tyler's testimony. We've filed for an emergency protective order. She won't be allowed within 500 feet of Tyler, and we're recommending supervised visitation rights be permanently revoked. What about criminal charges? Mitchell asked. The DA's office is reviewing the case. Child endangerment at minimum, possibly assault. But Andrea hesitated. These cases are hard to prosecute, especially with older defendants who present well in court. Donna has no prior record. That you know of. Andrea blinked. Excuse me. Mitchell made a decision. There may be other victims. A daughter who went missing in 1998. Can DCFS open an investigation into that? If you have evidence, we can coordinate with law enforcement. But Mr. Brown, I need to be clear. Any investigation into past allegations won't affect Tyler's case directly. I understand. I just want to make sure everyone knows what they're dealing with. Tyler was discharged that afternoon with prescriptions for antibiotics and pain medication, instructions for wound care, and a follow-up appointment in 3 days. Mitchell carried him to the car again, noting how Tyler clung to him differently now, not just because of the pain, but because something fundamental had shifted. His son had learned that people he should be able to trust could hurt him, and that knowledge would change him forever. At home, Mitchell settled Tyler on the couch with pillows under his knees, set up a movie, and went to his bedroom to call Jerry again. The PI found something, Jerry said without preamble. Diana Atkinson had a boyfriend in 1998. Guy named Spencer Harden. He's alive, living in Portland now. Owns a motorcycle repair shop. I talked to him an hour ago. And Diana was planning to leave. She'd saved up money, had a bus ticket to Seattle purchased for March 15, 1998. Spencer was going to meet her there, and they were going to start over. She called him on March 14th, said her mother suspected something, and she was scared. She told Spencer if anything happened to her, it was Donna. The next day, Diana was gone. Donna told everyone she'd run off to LA. Spencer called the police, but they didn't take him seriously. He had a record for marijuana possession, and Donna painted him as a drug dealer trying to corrupt her daughter. Mitchell felt the pieces falling into place. Did he say anything else? He said Diana told him that Donna had killed her father. Made it look like a heart attack. Diana had seen Donna crushing up pills and putting them in his food. She didn't report it because she was terrified, but she told Spencer everything. He's willing to talk to police now if it might help. It might. Forward his contact information to Andrea Harrison at DCFS. And Jerry? Thank you. Mitch, what are you planning? Mitchell looked at the closed bedroom door, beyond which his son sat watching cartoons while trying to process trauma no child should endure. I'm planning to make sure justice gets served, one way or another. That night, after Tyler was asleep, Mitchell had set up a temporary bed for him downstairs so he wouldn't have to navigate stairs. Mitchell sat at his kitchen table with everything Jerry had sent him. Police reports, medical records, witness statements, timelines. He spread it all out like blueprints for a construction project, because that's what this was. He was building a case, but not just for the courts. The courts might fail. The system might decide an old woman's tears were more convincing than a child's wounds. The DA might decide it wasn't worth prosecuting. These things happened. Mitchell had seen it happen to friends, to neighbors, to strangers on the news. Justice was supposed to be blind, but sometimes it was just blind to the truth. Mitchell had another plan. A backup plan. An insurance policy. He pulled up Donna's social media profiles. She was surprisingly active on Facebook, posting daily about her volunteer work at the local church, her gardening club, her book circle. She'd cultivated an image of a sweet, lonely widow doing her best to honor her late daughter's memory by helping raise her grandson. The comments were full of praise from people who didn't know what she really was. Mitchell created a dummy account and began documenting everything. He archived her posts, screenshots every comment, saved every photo. Then he began researching her friends, her associates, the people who'd testified to her character over the years. Everyone had secrets. Everyone had vulnerabilities. He just needed to find them. Around midnight, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Spencer. Jerry gave me your number. I've been waiting 27 years to tell someone what really happened to Diana. When can we talk? Mitchell replied, tomorrow. I'll come to you. He booked a flight to Portland for Saturday morning. Tyler would stay with Jerry and his wife Missy. They had 3 kids of their own, and Tyler knew them well. It would only be for 2 days. As Mitchell finally went to bed at 2 a.m., his mind was clear. He knew exactly what he was doing and why. This wasn't just about revenge for Tyler, though that was certainly part of it. This was about stopping a predator who'd been operating freely for decades. This was about making sure Diana got justice, even if it was 27 years too late. This was about making sure no other child ever knelt on rice for 6 hours while Donna Atkinson sat watching television. The system would have its chance. But if the system failed, and Mitchell was increasingly certain it would, then he'd become the justice Diana and Tyler and all the others deserved. Portland's spring rain was a fine mist as Mitchell's rental car pulled up to Spencer Hardin's motorcycle shop on Saturday afternoon. The building was weathered brick with a hand-painted sign, Hardin Custom Cycles. Through the bay door, Mitchell could see motorcycles in various states of repair and a man in oil-stained jeans working on an engine. Spencer looked up as Mitchell entered, wiping his hands on a rag. He was lean and weathered, late 40s with graying temples and eyes that had seen too much. "You must be Mitchell." They shook hands. Spencer's grip was firm, working man strength that Mitchell recognized. "Thanks for agreeing to meet. I've been waiting for this conversation for 27 years. Spencer led him to a small office cluttered with parts catalogs and coffee cups. "When Jerry called and told me what Donna did to your boy, I knew she was still doing it." Mitchell set his phone to record with Spencer's permission, and the older man began talking. What emerged over the next 3 hours was a portrait of evil more calculated than Mitchell had imagined. Diana Atkinson had been 19 when she met Spencer, working at a diner and dreaming of escape. She'd told Spencer everything about her childhood, the beatings disguised as discipline, the psychological torture, the isolation from anyone who might help. She'd watched Donna slowly poison her father with his own heart medication crushed into large doses, making his death look natural. She'd been too scared to report it at the time, but she'd kept evidence. "What kind of evidence?" Mitchell asked. Spencer disappeared into a back room and returned with a cardboard box that looked like it had been opened and resealed countless times over the decades. "Diana gave me this for safekeeping 2 weeks before she disappeared. She said if anything happened to her, I should give it to the police. I tried. They didn't care. Said it was just a runaway girl's paranoid journals and a boyfriend causing drama." Inside the box were 3 spiral notebooks filled with Diana's handwriting, dating back to when she was 12. Page after page documented abuse, dates, times, methods. She'd photographed some of her injuries with a disposable camera, the prints now faded but still visible. Burns, bruises, a broken finger Donna had treated at home rather than go to a hospital. And there was more, a small prescription bottle with 8 tablets inside, labeled with her father's name and marked as digoxin, a heart medication that, in large doses, could cause cardiac arrest. She counted them, Spencer explained. Her father's prescription was supposed to have 90 pills. When he died, there were only 12 left, but he'd only been taking them for 2 weeks. Someone had been taking them out, crushing them up, putting them in his food. Diana found the bottle Donna was using to store them. This bottle. She stole it and hid it. Mitchell held the bottle carefully. "This is evidence of murder." "Yeah, well, good luck proving it after 27 years. I tried getting the police to exhume the body back then. Donna blocked it. She had lawyers, money from her husband's life insurance. The case went nowhere. Tell me about Diana's disappearance." Spencer's face hardened. "March 14th, 1998, Diana called me from a payphone. She was crying. Said Donna had found her bus ticket. Donna confronted her, threatened her. Diana said she was leaving that night instead of waiting until morning. She'd take a cab to my place and we'd leave together. I waited all night. She never came. I went to Donna's house the next morning. Donna answered the door calm as anything. Said Diana had left for Los Angeles around midnight. That she'd driven her to the Greyhound station herself. Did you believe her? Hell no. I called the station. No one matching Diana's description had bought a ticket or boarded a bus. I called the police. They took a report but treated me like I was the problem. Donna told them I was a drug dealer stalking her daughter. I had one possession charge from when I was 18. Suddenly, I'm a dangerous criminal and Donna's the concerned mother. What do you think happened to Diana? Spencer met Mitchell's eyes. I think Donna killed her that night. I think she's buried somewhere on that property or dumped somewhere remote. Diana wouldn't have left willingly. She loved me. We had plans. Mitchell spent another hour going through Diana's journals with Spencer, photographing every page, documenting everything. The pattern was clear. Donna was a narcissistic sadist who viewed her children as property to be controlled and punished. She'd escalated with Diana as the girl got older and more independent, until Diana became a threat. A threat Donna eliminated. Why are you doing this? Spencer asked as Mitchell prepared to leave. I mean, I get that she hurt your kid. But this, you're going deep. Mitchell thought about Tyler's bloody knees. About Sarah's deathbed warning. About all the victims Donna had left in her wake. Because someone has to. And because I promised my wife I'd protect our son from her. I failed once. I won't fail again. Spencer nodded slowly. What do you need from me? Would you testify if I can get this reopened as a murder investigation? Absolutely. I'll testify. I'll provide these journals, all of it. I've been ready for 27 years. Good. I'll be in touch. The flight back to Sacramento gave Mitchell time to think. He had evidence now, strong evidence that Donna had murdered at least one person and possibly two. The journals alone were damning. The digoxin bottle could potentially still be tested. Spencer's testimony would corroborate Diana's state of mind and Donna's behavior. Combined with Tyler's case and the pattern of abuse, there was a real chance at getting justice. But there was a problem: time. The criminal justice system moved slowly. Reopening a decades-old missing persons case as a murder investigation would take months, maybe years. Getting an exhumation order for Donna's husband would require jumping through countless legal hoops. The DA would need to be convinced to prosecute. And through all of it, Donna would be free, potentially hurting others. Mitchell wasn't willing to wait years. Not when Tyler still woke up screaming from nightmares. Not when Donna was already spinning her narrative, playing the victim, convincing people that Tyler was a troubled child acting out after his mother's death. He needed leverage. He needed pressure. He needed to force the system to move faster. When Mitchell landed in Sacramento, he had a voicemail from Andrea Harrison. Mr. Brown, please call me as soon as possible. There's been a development in Tyler's case. He called from the airport. What happened? Donna filed a counter-complaint. She's claiming you coached Tyler to make false allegations because you're trying to keep her away from her grandson. She's also filed for grandparent visitation rights. Her lawyer is arguing that you're denying her access to Tyler out of spite following your wife's death, and that the injury was accidental, that Tyler fell while playing in her yard. Mitchell felt his jaw clench. Tyler didn't fall. We have medical evidence. I know, and we're presenting that evidence. But Mr. Brown, Donna has an expensive lawyer, and she's presenting very well. She's got character witnesses lined up, people from her church and community who'll testify she's a loving grandmother. The judge is going to hear both sides next week. I'm confident we'll win, but I wanted you to be prepared. This is going to be a fight. After hanging up, Mitchell sat in his car in the airport parking garage and felt rage wash over him. Donna wasn't just denying what she'd done. She was attacking Tyler's credibility, making him out to be a liar. She was using the system to victimize him again. Mitchell made a series of phone calls. First to Jerry, updating him on Portland and asking him to start finding Tyler's medical records, school counseling reports, anything that documented his mental state and well-being. Then to a lawyer friend, Ronald Fisher, who specialized in family law. Ronald was blunt. The problem is grandparent rights are a real thing in California, especially when one parent is deceased. If Donna can convince a judge she's stable and caring, and that her relationship with Tyler is beneficial to his development, she could win some level of visitation. It might be supervised, but she'd get access. Even after what she did. Even then. If her lawyer can create reasonable doubt about what really happened, if they can paint Tyler as confused or you as vindictive, it's possible. Judges err on the side of keeping family connections intact. What do? We present everything. The medical evidence, Tyler's testimony, DCFS recommendations. And Mitchell? If you have anything else on Donna, anything that shows a pattern, bring it. The more we can demonstrate she's unfit, the better our chances. Mitchell thought about Diana's journals sitting in his briefcase. I might have something. That evening, Tyler was waiting when Mitchell got home. The boy was moving better, the pain medication helping, but he looked scared. Dad, did Grandma say I'm lying? Mitchell sat beside him carefully. She did. But she's the liar, not you. And I'm going to prove it. What if the judge believes her? What if I have to see her again? Mitchell took his son's hands. That's not going to happen. I promise you, Tyler. You're never going to be alone with her again. Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes, echoed in Mitchell's mind as he lay awake that night. He'd seen enough in his life to know that sometimes the system failed. Sometimes the good guys lost because they played by rules the bad guys ignored. Sometimes justice didn't happen on its own. He thought about Diana's journals, about Spencer waiting 27 years for someone to believe him, about Sarah's last words, the promise he'd made, about Tyler's bloody knees and nightmares. Mitchell had always been a builder. He built houses, built a life, built a family. He knew how to take raw materials and create something solid and lasting. He knew how to read blueprints and follow plans. He knew how to solve problems. Now he was going to build something different. Not a house, not a life, a reckoning. But he'd do it smart. He'd do it carefully. He'd make sure that when Donna Atkinson's world came crashing down, there'd be no way for her to crawl out from under the rubble. Over the next 3 days, Mitchell worked methodically. He contacted Spencer and had him overnight the box of Diana's journals and evidence via secure courier. He met with Ronald Fisher and handed over copies of everything Jerry had found: the suspicious death of Donna's husband, the past incidents with other children, the pattern of abuse. Ronald's eyes widened as he read through the materials. This is Jesus, Mitchell. If even half of this is provable, Donna Atkinson should be in prison. That's the goal. But the missing daughter case is old. Really old. Getting it reopened will be tough. What if we had new evidence? Physical evidence that could tie Donna to Diana's death. Ronald looked up sharply. What kind of evidence? The kind that's still on Donna's property. Diana disappeared from that house. If she was killed there might still be forensic evidence. Blood, DNA, something. You'd need a warrant to search the property, and getting that warrant would require probable cause. What you have is strong, but it's circumstantial. Mitchell had expected this. The system required process, procedure, proof. But he had another option. A riskier option. An illegal option. What if evidence was found by, say, a contractor doing work on the property? Ronald held up his hands. Don't tell me what you're planning. If you're thinking about trespassing or breaking and entering, I can't be party to that. Anything you find illegally would be inadmissible in court. But it could lead to legal searches. If I found, hypothetically, evidence of Diana's murder and reported it anonymously, police would have to investigate. Maybe. Or maybe Donna gets tipped off and destroys everything. Mitchell, you're playing with fire. If you get caught on her property, she'll use it against you in Tyler's case. She'll say you're unhinged, dangerous. You could lose custody. That stopped Mitchell cold. Ronald was right. Any misstep could cost him Tyler. He needed to be smarter. Okay, different approach. What if we could get Donna to incriminate herself? What if we recorded her confessing? California is a two-party consent state for recordings. Anything you secretly record would be inadmissible, and she's not going to confess to you voluntarily. Mitchell stood and paced Ronald's office. So what you're telling me is the system is designed to protect someone like Donna. I'm telling you the system has rules, and those rules sometimes make it hard to prosecute guilty people. But they're also the rules that protect innocent people from being railroaded. You can't just... Ronald. Mitchell's voice was sharp. She tortured my 7-year-old son. She probably murdered her own daughter and definitely murdered her husband. She's getting away with it because she's smart enough to look like a harmless old lady. So I'm asking you, within the bounds of the law, what can I actually do? Ronald sighed. You can present everything we have at the hearing next week. You can hope the judge sees through her act. You can push for a criminal investigation into Diana's disappearance. I'll help with that. You can try to contact other victims, get them to come forward. You can be patient and trust the process. And if the process fails, then you accept it and move on, keeping Tyler safe through vigilance and legal protection orders. Mitchell nodded slowly, but both men knew he wasn't accepting anything. The hearing was scheduled for Thursday morning in Sacramento County Family Court. Mitchell arrived with Ronald and Tyler, who was still moving stiffly but healing. Donna sat across the courtroom with her attorney, a slick-looking man in his 50s named Timothy Blanchard. Judge Cheryl Harmon presided, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who'd seen every kind of family dispute imaginable. She reviewed the evidence methodically, the medical reports, photos of Tyler's injuries, DCFS's investigation findings, statements from Dr. Hudson and Andrea Harrison. Then Blanchard began his defense. He called Donna to the stand. She was perfect. Mitchell watched her transform before his eyes. The cold, cruel woman who'd tortured Tyler became a grieving grandmother with tears streaming down her face. She talked about losing her daughter Sarah, about wanting to maintain a connection with her grandson, about that terrible day when Tyler had been playing in the yard and fallen on the gravel path, where she'd scattered rice to feed the birds. He came inside crying. Donna testified, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. I cleaned his knees, but he said he was fine, said he didn't want to worry his father who was working so hard. I should have insisted on taking him to a doctor. I blame myself for not realizing how badly he was hurt. It was a masterful performance. Mitchell watched the judge's expression soften slightly. Then Blanchard played his ace, character witnesses. A parade of people from Donna's church, her book club, her neighborhood, all testified to her kindness, her devotion to Tyler, her grief over Sarah's death. A former teacher claimed Tyler had issues with honesty and had been caught lying about homework multiple times. Mitchell felt the case slipping away. When it was their turn, Ronald called Tyler to testify. The boy was nervous but clear. He described the rice, the timer, the pain, Donna sitting in her chair ignoring his tears. He was consistent, detailed, unwavering. Blanchard cross-examined gently, suggesting Tyler was confused, that maybe his father had influenced his memory, that grief sometimes made people remember things differently. Tyler looked at his father, then back at Blanchard. I know what happened to me. Grandma hurt me on purpose. She said I needed to learn discipline like Mom learned. She said Mom was weak, and she wouldn't let me be weak. It was the right answer, delivered with quiet conviction. But would it be enough? Judge Harmon took a 30-minute recess to consider. When she returned, her expression was troubled. I've reviewed all the evidence and testimony carefully, she began. This is a deeply troubling case. Tyler's injuries are consistent with prolonged kneeling on rice. The medical evidence is compelling. However, I'm also aware that family dynamics following a death can be complicated, and that well-meaning people sometimes misinterpret situations. Mitchell's hands clenched. After careful consideration, I'm issuing a temporary protective order. Ms. Atkinson will not have unsupervised contact with Tyler for 6 months, pending a psychological evaluation and completion of parenting classes. Supervised visitation may be granted after that period if the evaluation is favorable. Donna's attorney was already standing. Your Honor, my client is 63 years old. Requiring her to complete parenting classes is the condition for any future contact with her grandson, Judge Harmon said firmly. I'm also recommending law enforcement review this case for possible criminal charges. But I will not permanently sever the grandparent-child relationship based on one incident with disputed circumstances. My ruling stands. Mitchell felt his stomach drop. 6 months. And then potentially supervised visitation. Donna would have access to Tyler again, even if limited. As they left the courtroom, Donna walked past, and for just a moment when no one else was looking, she smiled at Mitchell. A cold, triumphant smile that said she'd won. That night, Mitchell sat in his garage long after Tyler had gone to bed. He'd been working on a construction project, a new deck for a client, but his hands were still. His mind was racing. The system had failed. Not completely, but enough. 6 months from now, if Donna played the game right, she'd have access to Tyler again. She'd put on a show for the psychologist, ace the parenting classes, present herself as reformed and misunderstood. And then she'd be back, closer to Tyler, looking for opportunities. Mitchell couldn't allow that. He pulled out his phone and called Jerry. I need to know if you're willing to cross a line. What kind of line? The illegal kind. There was a long pause. For Tyler? Yeah. What do you need? I need to get onto Donna's property without her knowing. I need to search it thoroughly. And I need your help. When? Tomorrow night. She's got book club on Friday nights. I saw it on her Facebook. She'll be gone from 7 to 10. I'm in. What are we looking for? Diana. Or evidence of what Donna did to her. Spencer said Diana was planning to leave March 14th and disappeared that night. If Donna killed her, she either buried her on the property or disposed of her somewhere nearby. But Diana's belongings would have been hidden somewhere, cleaned up somehow. There might still be evidence. 27 years is a long time for evidence to survive. Donna's lived in that house since 1980. She never remarried, never moved. If she kept anything, it's there. Mitchell knew this was a turning point. What he was planning was criminal trespass at minimum, potentially breaking and entering. If caught, he'd go to jail and lose Tyler. But the alternative was watching Donna slowly work her way back into Tyler's life, biding her time, waiting for the next opportunity. Some choices weren't really choices at all. Friday evening, Mitchell drove past Donna's house 3 times before parking 2 blocks away. He wore dark clothes, work gloves, and carried a backpack with flashlights, tools, and his phone set to record. Jerry met him at the corner, dressed similarly. "You're sure about this?" Jerry asked. "No, but I'm doing it anyway." They approached from the back, cutting through a neighbor's yard under cover of darkness. Donna's property backed onto a small orchard that had gone wild, providing cover. The house was dark. She'd left for book club at 6:45 p.m. according to her Facebook check-in. Getting inside was easier than Mitchell expected. The back door had an old lock he picked with tools from work in under 2 minutes. They slipped inside, closing the door quietly behind them. The house smelled of lavender and old wood. Mitchell swept his flashlight across the kitchen, spotlessly clean, everything in its place. They moved methodically through the first floor, searching for anything unusual. Loose floorboards, hidden compartments, documents. In Donna's bedroom, Mitchell found a locked filing cabinet. He forced it open with a pry bar, cringing at the noise but unable to stop now. Inside were folders of financial records, photos, personal documents. Mitchell photographed everything quickly, not taking time to analyze, just documenting. Jerry called from down the hall. "Mitch, you need to see this." The spare bedroom had been converted to an office/storage room. Boxes were stacked along one wall, and Jerry had opened one. Inside were children's clothes, girls' clothes, sized for a teenager. A jacket, jeans, a pair of sneakers. All neatly folded, preserved. "These are too big for Sarah when she was young," Jerry said. "And check the style. This jacket is from the 90s. Mitchell felt his pulse quicken. Diana's clothes. Donna had kept them. They opened more boxes. Diana's belongings were sorted and stored like exhibits in a museum. Textbooks from high school. A diary from when she was 14. Photos of her with friends. Concert ticket stubs. A whole life, cataloged and preserved. Why would she keep all this? Jerry wondered. "Trophies," Mitchell said quietly. "She's keeping trophies." In another box, they found something more chilling, a scrapbook. Donna had created a memorial to Diana, filled with photos and newspaper clippings about her disappearance. But the notes in the margins were disturbing. Things like, "She was always so dramatic, and this wouldn't have happened if she'd been obedient." The basement was accessed through a door off the kitchen. The stairs were wooden and creaky, and Mitchell descended carefully, his flashlight illuminating concrete walls and exposed beams. The basement was unfinished, used for storage and laundry. In the far corner, behind stacks of old furniture, Mitchell found something that made him stop cold. A section of the concrete floor was different, newer. The color slightly off from the surrounding concrete, and the surface smoother. It was roughly 6 feet by 3 feet, the size of a grave. Jerry, his friend, appeared beside him, and they both stared at the concrete patch. "You think?" Jerry didn't finish the question. Mitchell pulled out his phone and took multiple photos from different angles, documenting the location and appearance. Then he did something that felt insane but necessary. He took a small concrete saw from his backpack, a tool he'd grabbed from work, and made a careful cut into the edge of the newer concrete. The saw bit through easily. The concrete was definitely newer than the surrounding floor, probably no more than a few decades old. He made a small hole, maybe 2 inches deep, and then used a flashlight to look inside. The concrete was only about 3 inches thick. Below it was dirt, and in that dirt, Mitchell could see something white. He carefully extracted it with a flathead screwdriver. It was a piece of fabric. Deteriorated, stained, but clearly fabric. And unless Mitchell was very wrong, it was at the depth where you'd find human remains. "We need to call the police," Jerry said. "Right now?" "Not yet." Mitchell photographed the fabric, the hole he'd made, everything. "If we call the police now, we have to explain how we found this. I'd be arrested for breaking and entering. Everything we found would be inadmissible. So what do we do?" Mitchell thought fast. "We leave. We take all these photos. And then we call in an anonymous tip tomorrow. We say we're a concerned neighbor who saw Donna digging in her basement years ago and always thought it was suspicious. We mention the missing daughter. We let them get a warrant. Will they actually investigate based on an anonymous tip? They will when I send them copies of Diana's journals and Spencer's testimony. I'll package it all together. The tip, the evidence from Spencer, the journals documenting abuse. I'll make it impossible for them to ignore." They carefully replaced everything they'd moved, took a final sweep to ensure they'd left no obvious trace of their presence, and slipped out the back door. Mitchell's hands were shaking as they walked back to his car, but his mind was clear. He'd found her. After 27 years, Diana Atkinson was about to be discovered, and Donna's carefully constructed facade was about to crumble. Mitchell didn't sleep that night. He spent hours at his kitchen table organizing everything. Photos from the search, Diana's journals from Spencer, witness statements, timelines, evidence of Donna's past abuse. He created a comprehensive package documenting 27 years of Donna Atkinson's crimes. At 6 a.m., he called the Sacramento Police Department's non-emergency line from a burner phone purchased months ago for construction site work. He kept his voice steady, his story simple. He was a neighbor who'd lived near Donna Atkinson in 1998. He'd seen her burying something in her basement late at night around the time Diana disappeared. He'd always wondered, but had been too afraid to report it. After seeing the recent news about child abuse allegations, his conscience wouldn't let him stay silent any longer. The dispatcher sounded skeptical, but took the report. Mitchell gave them Donna's address and Diana's name, then hung up. The real work came next. Mitchell had created an email account using public Wi-Fi days ago, completely untraceable to him. From that account, he sent a detailed email to the Sacramento Police Department, the DA's office, and 3 local news stations. The subject line, "Evidence of murder in 1998 cold case, Diana Atkinson." The email contained scanned copies of Diana's journals documenting abuse, photos of the medicine bottle with elevated doses of digoxin, Spencer Hardin's contact information and testimony, the timeline of Diana's disappearance, documentation of Donna's husband's suspicious death, anonymous photos of the basement concrete anomaly. He included just enough information to make investigation inevitable, but nothing that directly connected him to the break-in. By noon, Sacramento PD had contacted Spencer Hardin to verify his information. By 3 p.m., they'd obtained a warrant to search Donna Atkinson's property, specifically the basement, based on the combination of the anonymous tip, Diana's journals, and Spencer's testimony that Diana feared her mother. Mitchell heard about it from Andrea Harrison, who called him at 4 p.m. "I don't know if you've seen the news, but there's a major development. Police are searching Donna Atkinson's home in connection with her daughter Diana's disappearance in 1998. Apparently, there's new evidence suggesting foul play." "Really?" Mitchell kept his voice neutral. "The timing is incredible. Just as we're fighting her in family court, evidence surfaces of a possible murder. The judge is going to want to know about this. It could completely change Tyler's case. What happens now? We wait. If they find human remains, if they can prove Donna was involved, she'll be arrested. The protective order will become permanent. Tyler will never have to see her again." Mitchell thanked her and hung up, then turned on the news. Live coverage showed police vehicles surrounding Donna's house, officers in protective gear entering and exiting. A perimeter had been established. Crime scene tape was everywhere. And then, around 7 p.m., the news anchor's voice grew urgent. "We're receiving reports that human remains have been discovered in the basement of the home. Again, human remains have been found at the residence of Donna Atkinson in connection with the 1998 disappearance of her daughter Diana Atkinson." Mitchell closed his eyes. Diana had been there all along, buried beneath concrete, while Donna lived her life pretending to be a respectable widow and grandmother. Tyler appeared in the doorway. "Dad? What's happening?" Mitchell pulled his son into a hug. "Justice, buddy. Justice is finally happening." The arrest came at 9:47 p.m. Donna Atkinson was taken into custody, charged with first-degree murder in the death of Diana Atkinson. News cameras captured her being led out in handcuffs, her face a mask of fury and disbelief. For the first time, the world was seeing the real Donna Atkinson. Over the next week, the story exploded. Local news became national news. Cold case investigators exhumed the body of Donna's husband and found evidence of digoxin poisoning, just as Diana's journals had claimed. Other victims came forward, former foster children, neighbors' kids, students Donna had taught before Sarah was born. The picture that emerged was of a woman who'd spent decades abusing and tormenting children, always careful to choose victims who wouldn't be believed or whose complaints could be dismissed. Spencer Hardin gave a tearful interview about Diana, about their plans, about 27 years of wondering and waiting. The journals were published in part, showing the systematic abuse Diana had endured. Public opinion turned savagely against Donna. The DA upgraded charges to include 2 counts of first-degree murder multiple counts of child abuse, and conspiracy to cover up crimes. The evidence was overwhelming: Diana's body, the journals, Spencer's testimony, the forensic evidence from the basement, Tyler's case providing proof of an ongoing pattern. Ronald Fisher called Mitchell with an update on family court. Judge Harmon has permanently terminated Donna's parental and grandparent rights. She'll never have legal access to Tyler. And given the criminal charges, the protective order is now indefinite and criminal in nature. It's over, Mitchell. You won. But Mitchell didn't feel victorious. He felt hollow. Tyler was safe, yes. Diana had finally gotten justice. Donna would spend the rest of her life in prison. But none of it brought Sarah back. None of it erased Tyler's trauma or the 6 hours he'd spent kneeling on rice. None of it gave Diana back the life she should have lived. That night, as Mitchell sat on Tyler's bed watching his son sleep, he thought about what he'd done. The breaking and entering. The illegal search. The anonymous tip that set everything in motion. He'd crossed lines he'd never thought he'd cross, become someone he'd never thought he'd be. But he'd kept his promise to Sarah. He'd protected Tyler. And he'd stopped a monster who'd been operating freely for decades. The trial was months away, but the outcome was certain. Donna's lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the DA refused. This case was too big, too public, too clear-cut. They were going for life without parole. Jerry stopped by one evening with beers, sitting with Mitchell on the back porch. You did good, Mitch. I broke the law. You found a murderer. Sometimes the lines get blurry. Does that make it right? Jerry was quiet for a moment. I don't know about right. But it was necessary. Tyler's safe. Other kids are safe. Diana can finally rest. That's got to count for something. Mitchell nodded slowly. He'd made peace with what he'd done, or at least he was trying to. The anonymous tip had worked. The evidence had been discovered legally via warrant, making it admissible in court. His break-in remained unknown. From the outside, it looked like Spencer's testimony and Diana's journals had prompted a legitimate investigation that uncovered the truth. Only Mitchell, Jerry, and eventually Tyler would ever know the full story. 6 months later, Mitchell stood in a courtroom watching Donna Atkinson's sentencing. The trial had been swift. Her lawyers had eventually advised her to plead guilty in exchange for 2 consecutive life sentences instead of risking trial and multiple life sentences plus additional time for the child abuse charges. Donna stood before the judge, no longer the sweet grandmother act she'd perfected. Her mask had slipped, and what remained was brittle anger. When given the opportunity to speak, she said only, Diana was always dramatic. She made everything difficult. There was an audible gasp in the courtroom. Even her own lawyer looked horrified. Judge Harmon's voice was ice. Ms. Atkinson, you murdered your own daughter and buried her in your basement. You murdered your husband. You tortured multiple children over decades. And you show no remorse whatsoever. I'm sentencing you to 2 consecutive life sentences without possibility of parole for the murders of Diana Atkinson and Robert Atkinson, plus an additional 30 years for child abuse charges. You will die in prison, and the world will be safer for it. The gavel came down. Donna was led away, and for just a moment, she looked at Mitchell sitting in the gallery. There was no triumph in her expression, only rage that she'd finally been caught. Outside the courthouse, Spencer Hardin found Mitchell. Thank you, he said simply, for believing, for doing what the police wouldn't do 27 years ago. Diana deserved justice. She did, and she got it, thanks to you. Tyler was healing, both physically and emotionally. His knees had scarred, but the wounds had closed. The nightmares were less frequent. He was seeing a therapist who specialized in childhood trauma, and slowly, he was learning that what happened wasn't his fault. One evening, Tyler asked, Dad, how did the police find Diana? Mitchell had prepared for this question. Someone who knew something finally came forward. Sometimes it takes a long time for the truth to come out, but it does eventually. Do you think Diana knows we found her? I think wherever Diana is, she's at peace now. She's not trapped anymore. Tyler nodded, seeming satisfied with this answer. Then, are you okay, Dad? You seem different since everything happened. Mitchell pulled his son close. I'm okay, buddy. I'm just glad you're safe. That's all that matters to me. And it was true. Mitchell had changed. Crossing moral lines had left marks, but he'd do it again in a heartbeat if it meant protecting Tyler. Some choices weren't about right or wrong. They were about survival and protection and keeping the promises you made to the people you loved. The dreams about Sarah became less painful after Donna's sentencing. In them, Sarah would smile at Mitchell and say, "You kept your promise." And he had, in every way that mattered. Tyler started third grade that fall, making new friends and slowly leaving the trauma behind. Mitchell reduced his work hours to spend more time with his son, coaching Tyler's soccer team and helping with homework. They went to therapy together, learning to talk about what had happened and how to move forward. On the anniversary of Sarah's death, Mitchell and Tyler visited her grave with flowers. Tyler had written her a letter, which they buried beside her headstone. In it, he told her about school, about his friends, about how much he missed her. And he told her that Dad had kept her safe, just like she'd asked. Mitchell didn't read the letter, but he could imagine what Tyler meant by kept her safe. Maybe his son understood more than Mitchell gave him credit for. Or maybe Tyler just knew that sometimes fathers had to do difficult things to protect their children. The construction business was steady, and Mitchell found purpose in building things again, not traps or plans for revenge, but actual structures that would shelter families and last for generations. He was particularly careful with the foundations, making sure everything was solid and true. Because foundations mattered. They determined whether what you built would stand or crumble. Jerry remained a close friend, never speaking of that Friday night they'd spent in Donna's house. It was a secret they'd take to their graves, a necessary crime that had enabled justice. Mitchell had learned that sometimes the legal system needed help, needed someone willing to risk everything to push it in the right direction. He'd become that someone for Tyler, for Diana, for all of Donna's victims. And while he'd never be proud of breaking the law, he was proud of the outcome. A murderer had been stopped. Children were safer. Evil had been punished. 2 years later, on a warm Saturday afternoon, Mitchell and Tyler were in the backyard building a treehouse. Tyler was 9 now, taller and stronger. The scars on his knees faded to thin white lines. He was laughing as he helped Mitchell secure a board, and the sound filled Mitchell with gratitude so profound it was almost painful. "This is going to be the best treehouse ever," Tyler declared. "It is," Mitchell agreed. "We're building it right. Good foundation, solid structure. It'll last. Just like us," Tyler said, looking at his father. "We're solid too, right, Dad?" Mitchell smiled, pulling his son into a hug. "Yeah, buddy. We're solid. Nothing's going to shake us." And it was true. They'd been through fire and come out tempered. Stronger. Together. As the sun set over Sacramento, Mitchell looked at the treehouse they were building. A place where Tyler could be safe, could play, could just be a kid, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. Donna Atkinson was in prison where she belonged. Diana and Robert finally had justice. Tyler was healing and safe. The system had worked, even if it had needed a push in the right direction. Mitchell Brown had kept his promise to Sarah. He'd protected their son at any cost. He'd become the justice Diana never got in life. He'd stopped a predator who'd terrorized victims for decades. The methods might have been questionable. The line between right and wrong might have blurred. But the outcome was clear. Evil had been punished, and innocence had been protected. And in the end, that was all that mattered. Mitchell secured the final board of the treehouse, Tyler handing him nails with a smile, and felt the weight he'd been carrying since Sarah's death finally lift. He'd done what needed to be done. He'd been the father Tyler deserved. He'd honored Sarah's memory by keeping their son safe. The scars would remain, on Tyler's knees, on Mitchell's conscience, but they were healing. And sometimes, scars were just proof you'd survived something that should have destroyed you. They were survivors. They were strong. They were solid. And they were finally, truly free. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.